All right. Hi, everyone. I am Audrey Moore with the Audrey Helps Actors podcast. And today we have, Ron, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Ron Ostrow. I'm a national board member from Los Angeles. I'm also on the Los Angeles local board, and I am on the negotiating committee for the TV theatrical contract that we are currently striking.
You sure are. And you are a longtime member of SAG-AFTRA. Tell everybody what year you joined.
I joined in 1982.
Whoop, whoop. First of all, I want to start by thanking you very much for your service. I've been saying this to everyone who's been so kind to come on and talk about these points of negotiations. And for the listeners out there, I want everyone to know that you are spending countless hours, not just this year, but in many years leading up to this moment, to attend meetings, to be informed and knowledgeable on as many of these subjects as possible. So can you tell everyone a little bit about how many hours you think you spent just in 2023 alone volunteering your time?
Just this year?
Just 2023. Let's just give them now.
This is also an uncharacteristic time, right? Because this is in the middle of a negotiation. By the way, this is my fifth TV theatrical negotiation.
Yes. As a committee member, as a negotiating committee member?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. My either second or third as a voting member. I started out as an alternate.
Yeah.
This year, this year has been quite challenging and quite different. First of all, when the pandemic hit, we started having meetings over Zoom. Board meetings, national board meetings and local board meetings were over Zoom. And as a result, we actually were able to meet more frequently. Because they didn't have to fly people in from the East Coast, and it was a much different setup. So we got into this pattern of having more regular meetings, but I would say it's way too many to be able to figure. I mean, we spent just in the 3.5 weeks that we were in real negotiations. We were in that room when we were not in that room every single day. Sometimes we were waiting for responses from the APTP. But when we were in those rooms, we were in those rooms for 8 to 12 hours.
Yes.
That was, and sometimes on weekends. And then we had a very robust W&W process and a very thorough what's called plenary, which is where we take all of the the proposals, which were like over 300 of them.
Yeah.
And we talked about each and every one of them. And some of them were overlapping. Some of them were not really things that we could get a lot of traction on in the room. And there are other ones that were enthusiastically supported. And we put together the package that we pushed across the table, the MPTV. I'm sorry, I countless and countless hours.
So people who have really dedicated lots of time and energy to the service of this industry and have a real history to our union and what the contracts look like and the differences between the contracts, so that everyone understands that this is a very selfless and humble act that you have been partaking in through the entirety of your career, and that it has come at great personal sacrifice of time and energy, and that you take that seriously, and that is a real labor of love.
Well, also in addition to these 5 negotiations, I've been on the commercial negotiation committee twice and the Netco once. And this is what I would say. This is the first TV theatrical contract that I could tell you right now, as it stands right now, it is the best contract that we've had in the 5 negotiations that I've been a part of. There are areas that we, like AI, that absolutely have to be solved.
Yes.
There are areas like the pension caps that absolutely have to be solved. But we've made such strides so far. And you can see what those are. And also, this is the first negotiation where the members can actually see what it is that we're talking about, because the interim contract is literally the last thing that we had on the table that we were demanding when the negotiations broke off. So in the past, it's always been, one of the reasons why there is a lot of armchair quarterbacking is because we don't negotiate in public.
Right.
So everybody thinks that we should be asking for this, that, or the other thing, and we might actually be asking for them, and they don't know. And we might have tried to get it and failed, and they don't know. And one of the frustrating things about the whole process, to go to what you're talking about, is unless you've been in a negotiation, you don't know what it's like to be in a negotiation. And even if you've been in another kind of negotiation, you've not been in a negotiation with these people.
Yes.
And you've never been in a negotiation where the people, where the dollar amounts that we're talking about are so large. We're talking, our package right now is in excess of $1 billion. I mean, I don't have the exact dollar amount, but it's way above $1 billion.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of people who have very legitimate needs and concerns, not just money. There are working conditions. There are
Safety.
safe sets. Exactly. There are and one of the frustrating things that people understand is we've offered things in the past to the AMPTP that you would think that they would have opened their arms, embraced us, thanked us for bringing these things like 3 years ago, our sexual harassment package would have provided them. Now, it would have provided us with great benefit, but it would have provided them with legal protections. Because you think, boy, if only you do this, you're protecting yourself. And you know what? They didn't want to have anything to do with it. It's like, it's madness to talk to these people.
Yes.
So people say, oh, it should be easy to get this. Oh, they've got so much money, they can afford it. You know what? They can't afford it. And you know what? They don't want to do it.
Yeah. And that's why we're here.
Right. We have only one gun, and we're using it right now, which is the strike.
Yes.
That's our only gun that we have. Because otherwise it is all compromise and speaking. The strike was, thank God, for the 98% approval vote that we got, almost 98% approval vote, because this is what is allowing us to actually, we would not have what we have on the table right now had it not been for the threat of the strike. And we're not going to get what we're going to wind up with, which is going to be better than what's on the table without a strike.
That's right.
And people have to understand that. And I want to say something actually that's really great about this committee, because there are some of us that have been around for a long time and sometimes have a knee-jerk reaction of saying, it didn't work before, it's not going to work again. We got a bunch of new people who never had that experience. And they actually have been incredibly effective in finding the workaround, the other angle, bringing certain things up there. So we've got an amazing mix of first-timers who are sharp as can be, and other people who have been there before and really have a grasp on what the process is. And it works really, really well. And I'll tell you something that, just as a little aside, these were not my very first negotiations. When I first started out in New York, I was a bartender in the Broadway theaters, and we had a union, but nobody wanted us. The ushers didn't want us. We were like some union out of New Jersey, and I was on the 2-person negotiation team for our contract with these tough guys who were our negotiators. And they didn't understand who we were. We were a bunch of people who were aspiring actors, and we wanted to get paid correctly, and we wanted the right working conditions, but we were never going to strike. And they came in and were like talking tough, and we had to say, listen, our members won't be behind this. And as a result, I learned a very big lesson. If the members are not behind you, you have nothing.
You have no leverage.
And exactly. And so when I came to the first negotiation I was in, I already knew this. I already knew what we needed. And again, this is the first of any of the negotiations that I've been on. We have the strike authorization, and it means all the difference in the world.
It does, yeah. So you and I have a agenda today to go over a specific point in terms of this grid that's been handed out. And this is a really important one, I know, to me and to all of us who have been in the game for a while. And so I'll just tell everybody, this is the new media revenue sharing. So this is basically just saying that casts are entitled to the success of a show that a streaming service is enjoying the success of, correct?
Yes.
One of the things I'd love to talk about what we're asking and then what they are countering with, which it says nothing, and
Right.
and why why we imagine they're countering with nothing.
So the first thing that you have to understand about the
Yeah.
revenue share proposal,
Yeah.
which by the way, I want to give Fran Drescher her props on this.
Love.
This was
Great.
her idea.
Great.
This was her idea. This did not come out of the W&Ws.
Great.
This was her idea.
Great.
And it's dead spot on. What you need to know about the revenue share is it's additive. It is not in place of
Great.
residuals. Residuals have always been success based, except for the fixed residual. The fixed residual, which is unfortunately in many cases is going away because we're not getting our reruns on primetime television the way we used to. Most residuals are based on distributors' gross receipts. They may very well be a factor of total applicable minimum, which is called TAM. It really depends on the various different structures. But a lot of our residuals are already success-based. But to really jump into the revenue share thing, it's really so simple.
Great.
We are asking for 2% of revenue, not profits. We're asking for 2% of revenue. Now, what are we going to do with that revenue?
Great.
We want to have it success-based. Meaning that if you are in House of Dragons, you're going to get more money than if you are in, I don't want to be disparaging and I can't even
Sure.
think of it, but some show that
Yeah.
didn't
That got
last
20,000
13
people watched, and that's it.
It was a network show that had 13 episodes that nobody watched and it wound up on Peacock. Okay? So there's a different, obviously, gradation. So we envision finding some kind of a metric that tells how we would have ideally the entire list of projects on a platform, right? And we would have a metric that would help us decide how much value a particular project brought to the platform. And then you would get paid quarterly.
Great.
And
And
so
that's on top. I just want to.
That's on top of residuals, in
Great.
addition to residuals.
Great.
So why don't they want to do it?
Great.
One, it will cost them $500 million.
Okay. Okay, good.
Okay. However, when you look at the fact that how it's spread out over everybody, we're talking about we're talking about $30 million to one company and $50 million to another company. The truth of the matter is, when it's spread out across everybody, it's a rounding error.
I know.
It's
I know
not
that.
okay. So it sounds like a lot of money, but it's a rounding error. So number one is they don't want to do it.
Okay.
And what did they say to us?
Yeah.
They said, we don't even want to talk. They said two things. First of all, they said, we don't want to talk to you about it. And then the second thing that they told us, which was just flat out ridiculous, they said, we can't talk to you about it because we are the producers. We are not the distributors. And
But
you
they
know
are
who was
both,
saying-
right?
Right. And you know who was saying that? Apple,
Right.
who was telling us, we're not a distributor. And
Yeah.
Duncan turned to them and said, you're a distributor.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? We're sitting there with Amazon. You're a distributor.
You are literally the distributor, right?
So they had no answer for that. They said, we're not, they said that their mandate is to speak from the producers and we can't talk to them. So Fran said, let me talk to your boss.
Exactly. I heard that. Yeah.
Fran said, I want to speak to the manager. And I mean, their jaws dropped because no one has ever talked to them like that. But so that's sort of where that got left. Now, the other part of it that they complained about, which is a red herring,
Yes. Tell me.
which is parrot analytics.
What does that mean?
I'm going to tell you.
Great.
The individual streamers don't tell you the actual metrics about who's watching what.
Right. They don't tell you.
This is proprietary information that they certainly don't want to share with their competitors. And they're sitting in the room. So if Apple were to say, I got, 50 million people watched
Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso, that's something that they don't, they want to brag that Ted Lasso is a hit without actually saying what it is. So the first thing is they don't want to give you the information. So we found a company which at first when we said their name, they said we told them, you use this company. And the
Yes.
first thing they said was they denied that they used it. And then they had to realize that actually, yes, in fact, they do use it.
Great. They're coming in
it's
very well informed, I can tell.
Right. But it's a company, and what they do is they literally go out in the world, they scrub social media, they scrub, they take all the information that they can, and they are able to synthesize it with some plus or minus degree of certainty. But at the very least, it would give us a ranking. A ranking that we as performers could live with, because we all know that we all know show A is more successful than show B. So it's just a question of the metric. So we said we wanted to use Parrot Analytics, and they said no.
Great.
And they made a big deal about Parrot Analytics because it's unreliable and thing, but it's a red herring because the real issue is the 2%. Once we get the 2%, right? Once we get the 2%, we can figure out how we're going to divide it. The real, all that they have to worry about is
giving it.
Giving it,
Right.
Because the revenue again, because it's not profits, right? It's off the top. So when Netflix gets $100 million, we get $2 million, and then so that's the battle that we've got to wage first. We've got to win the battle of getting them to give us the percentage. And then we'll figure out how we're going to put it into the pockets of our members.
So essentially what we're talking about is you gave them an option to say, well, listen, we want 2%, and then we can't possibly give that to you. And so, well, you tell us your numbers. And they said, well, we're not going to tell you our numbers. And they said, okay, well, then we'll go get the numbers. We'll get the numbers. You can either give us the numbers, which would be accurate on your side, or we can go get the numbers, and they'll be less accurate because we're going to go get them by whatever means we can do to get them. And in both directions, they said no numbers because we don't want to give you the money. Is that correct?
You put so many more words in their mouths than they actually uttered. What you did was you did the subtext.
Okay, good.
The discussion was, we want 2%. They said no. We said we want 2%. They said we can't give it to you because you're talking to the wrong people. We said we want to talk to your boss, and they said no. So that was it. Now they also said on the side note that even if we were to say yes, which we're not saying yes, we would never use Parrot Analytics.
Great.
And we said we don't care about Parrot Analytics. We'll use any metric that we can find that is acceptable. We're not married to them. So, but the bottom line is they don't want to. And when we say they rejected it, we mean they didn't want to. We did not have the back and forth that you're talking about, because the back and forth implies that they were actually taking it seriously and trying to figure out a way to make it work. That's one of the things, the conundrums that people don't understand about negotiation is that a negotiation is a conversation.
Right.
And the reason why we're on strike is because one side is refusing to talk to the other one.
That's right.
We can't come to a conclusion. We can't even settle on another figure if you won't even have the discussion with us and say it is a legitimate thing to be talking about. Because once they start talking to us about it, we've won. We've won something. And they will not, they are not interested in letting us have a square inch of their revenue.
Yeah. That's really powerfully said. I want to just end on this question and this point, which is, why is this 2%? Why is this revenue sharing? Why is it important to us as members now, today in 2023, going forward with a actor's income and the trajectory of the actor's income?
I think it's a pretty simple question to answer, because all you have to do is look at your streaming residual checks.
Right.
We have fallen into a very bad pattern which we are trying to break. The bad pattern has been that every time there has been a new method of distribution, we say we want some, and the other side says, well, we got to build it first, and once we build it, we'll let you in. And then once they built it, we come back and say, hey, where's our stuff? And they say, oh, the model won't work now. The only way it works is the way we built it. We can't give it to you. And we fell for that time and time again.
Yeah.
So now we're got streaming residuals, and the streaming residual formula is incredibly complicated. You've got a subscriber factor, and you multiply that by your compensation up to the maximum, and then on that, then there's a sliding scale from 40% down to 15% over the next 7 years, and then the foreign is 30% with a sliding scale. So it's ridiculous, and you end up getting really tiny checks.
Yes.
And so the revenue share is a way of trying to even the playing field out. The business model has changed. We no longer have network network reruns, right? The business has changed. Once upon a time, back 40 years ago when I got into this business, the story is that if you got a couple of guest stars a year,
You could make a living.
could make a living. You could buy a house.
I know.
You
I have
could,
friends who are second
Right.
generation, third generation,
Right.
and they are working significantly more than their parents did, and they are
And
making
making
a
less money.
third of what their
Yeah.
parents were making.
Right, because I was on a series for 2 years, and my residual income from those network reruns were magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. The last several shows that I've done on network didn't rerun. So it cuts you down. So anyway, the importance of it is that it's try to get the equal playing field. There's another part of it, which really is a philosophical thing, which is whether you're a capitalist, whether you're a socialist, what the kind of it is that you are, there is something to be said that we are entitled to participate in the success of the product that we make.
Yeah, that we
And
made
have-
successful.
Right, and Fran talks about us being the center of the wheel. She uses a lot of metaphors, and one of them is that we're the center of the wheel. One of them is that without us, that we could go out in the world and act under a bare light bulb. We don't need to practice our craft, to give our gift. We just need somebody sitting on the other side of us and watching us. They need us more than we need them in order to actually do what we want to do.
Right.
But obviously, we need them if we want to make to buy
Make a
groceries.
living. Right.
Right. So the point is that their product could not exist without us. We need a value add that recognizes what we contribute to the success, which is why what's great about the revenue share is it's success based in terms of how it gets distributed to the members. I mean, it's incredibly elegant and poetic. I mean, I hope that people will understand what we're fighting for and recognize that this is a way that we're trying to rectify. It will never completely equal a network rerun.
Right.
The money doesn't work. Right now it's not going to happen.
Right.
But we're going to try and close the gap and make things better.
Yeah, what it reminds me of, and I've used this metaphor before, is when we had prosthetic legs in the past, we were like, well, let's make it like a leg. And so we made things that looked like legs as prosthetic legs. And it took a while to go, maybe it doesn't need to look like a leg. Maybe that was just our idea of what it was. And so we're going to create another version for people to be mobile that does the thing that a leg will do, but isn't going to have the foot and the ankle and the knee in the same way. And that to me is so much of what we're doing in terms of trying to catch up with streaming and tech coming into our industry, is not necessarily being hindered by the concepts of how we used to make money, and start to comprehend what are things we can do to capture income and payment that is fair now, given the models that we are currently working with.
What's interesting about your metaphor is actually that there are prosthetic legs that are superior to legs.
Exactly.
There are people that are actually running in races faster on those spring-loaded legs than they would otherwise. And the problem with our industry, our side of the industry, is we haven't found those legs yet.
Right.
We have not developed a payment structure yet that surpasses the network. The gold standard was the network rerun,
Right.
primetime rerun,
Right.
and we have not created a residual structure that even equals it. So that's the problem, is that the goal that we would be having would be to have that prosthetic leg that catapults
Surpasses.
us ahead, which is what should be happening. As time goes by, things are supposed to get better. They're not supposed to
Right.
get worse.
Right. The second and third generation actors should be able to make a better living than their parents and grandparents before them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very good. Well, Ron, thank you so much. I really
Sure.
appreciate your time. I know that you're busy.
Sure.
And again, thank you so much for your service. I think it's going to be
It's
a fantastic
my
episode
pleasure.
for everyone.